Hello and welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. And we got a couple narratives for today. You got Mike Trout's birthday, but more importantly, Mike Trout's price, which we'll get to here in a couple minutes. But even more importantly than that, we've got a lot of really good arms on the mounds. Complete opposite of last night and quite a few nights we've had recently. So you got Clayton Kershaw against the Pirates team that struggles against left-handed pitching. They've got some individuals that hit lefties well, but they strike out a ton as a team. So, I mean, if you can afford him, he's obviously your top option. He also is being opposed by Garrett Cole, though, so small favorite, which is rare for Clayton Kershaw, just minus 140. But then you got a couple other really good options. Jose Fernandez against the Braves, who obviously don't have Freddie Freeman now. I mean, for me tonight, I want Clayton Kershaw, but a $2,400 discount to Jose Fernandez, I think just makes a lot of sense. So I'm probably going to just roll with Jose Fernandez in my cash games tonight.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And as of last night, when I wrote the odds down, they actually had the same odds at minus 140 money line and a 6 over under. And you have to really like that matchup for Jose Fernandez. Even though he's not at home, he pitches much better at home. At Atlanta, without Freddie Freeman in that Braves lineup, you just have to really like his chances there, and I think he's a safe pick with upside. So 11K, I really like that price point. Well, I don't really like it. I really like it compared to Kershaw's 13.4. But yeah, I think he's the safest cash game play probably for a per dollar pick on a per dollar basis, that is. Otherwise, you could pivot to DeGrom at Tampa. Little bit of a pitcher-friendly park there. Tampa has been one of the worst hitting teams over the past month or two. And I think he's going to have a lower ownership percentage because a lot of people are going to be between Kershaw and Jose Fernandez, and rightfully so for cash games. But I think DeGrom is the pivot there just in case Jose doesn't live up to expectations. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're dipping down into the mid-range, I kind of like Julio Teheran. He hasn't been that great this season, kind of below expectations, but he has a pretty decent matchup at home against Miami. I don't know. He's either off or he's on. He was really great in his last start at Philly. The only problem with this is he's up against Jose Fernandez, so might be difficult to grab the win, but if you're building some tournament stacks, he's someone to keep on your radar.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these middle to upper tier guys are facing off against each other, so nobody really a huge favorite tonight. So that's going to make things a lot more interesting. And a guy that I like, I guess it's the lower upper tier here, $1,000 more than Julio Teheran, is Lance Lynn against Milwaukee. Obviously, Milwaukee had a big game yesterday, but Lance Lynn, I mean, he's a good pitcher. His last start against Milwaukee was solid, 7 2/3 scoreless with 5 Ks. Just 5 hits, and that was before they traded away half their lineup. So I think Lynn's probably one of my favorite tournament swerves there if I'm going to pay down a little bit. And then if we're looking at really cheap guys, nobody that really stands out except I like Aaron Nola. We know what he's a big prospect. He's pitched well since he's come up. Hasn't been overpowering and has only gone more than 6 innings once, went 7 2/3 against Chicago 2 starts ago. But $6,100 against a Padres offense that is just absolutely pathetic right now. I think he's the guy I'll be paying down for if I'm trying to stack a lot of bats in tournaments tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't need him to do a whole lot. Maybe 6 innings, 5 or so strikeouts, 1 or 2 earned runs, hopefully a win. And you're sitting pretty with some good stacks going in there. So I don't really mind that. I think he's a nice, cheap play there.
Yeah. One more guy that I'll mention there around that price is Daniel Norris at 6K. Going up against Joe Kelly. It's a Detroit offense that really hasn't been very good recently. Victor Martinez got it going yesterday, but really nobody, not a whole lot of other guys really followed suit until Kinsler's walk-off homer. But Norris, just that one start, but 7 1/3 against Baltimore. He was solid with 5 Ks. $6,000 against a Boston team that doesn't strike out a lot, but is also not very good against left-handed pitching. So I think he's another cheap option. But I still prefer Nola, though. All right, catcher. This is where things get weird. Hank Conger, your most expensive guy on the night. You're certainly not paying $3,900 for him against Sonny Gray in any format. I mean, I'm not at least. So the guys that I'm looking at cheap guys. Speaking of Victor Martinez, after hitting 2 home runs last night, his price went down $100, and he's $2,500 against Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly, worse against righties and lefties. Obviously, Victor Martinez is a switch hitter, but it really doesn't matter. Joe Kelly's not a good pitcher. Victor Martinez, one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. So, I mean, I think he's a lock for me in cash games like he was yesterday.
Yeah, and you're not just chasing that 2 home run game here, so I don't think you really have to worry about that because there's really no one else to pay up for that you really like the price point. You're going to need some savings when you're getting Kershaw or Fernandez in your lineup. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to go for 2.5K, click him in against a guy who's really struggling in Joe Kelly, hitter-friendly park there in Fenway. Or is it in Fenway? I guess I didn't double check. It's in Detroit, actually.
Yeah, Detroit.
Either way, Joe Kelly has just been bad lately.
Yep.
So I don't really mind that. I think he has the best ability out of anyone in that range. Otherwise, if you're not completely sold on VMart or you want to kind of pivot away from the popular pick, you have Dioner Navarro at 2.3K,
Yep.
2.4K actually, sorry, at Yankee Stadium, which we know they get a nice boost there. Left-handed hitters do in the power department. He's against Nathan Eovaldi. 340 WOBA against left-handed hitters, so you really don't mind those metrics all lining up in his favor. And especially if he's batting 5th or 6th again, because that's a pretty sweet RBI spot for a Toronto team that gets on base a lot and can really put up runs.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm with you. I'm going to be paying down. Those are the guys I'm really looking at. There's a couple other guys you consider as far as cheap options for tournaments. Wilson Ramos, $2,300 against De La Rosa, or Jesus Montero. He does have a tougher matchup against Cole Hamels, but we know the guy's got power. He's $2,300 facing off against Hamels. And obviously a park downgrade as if he were in Texas, and a lot from where he was in Coors Field the other day. But at 2.3K, I like his upside, though.
Yeah, Ramos was another pick that I had on my list. I think the Nationals are pretty sneaky stacked today, and they're relatively cheap. So I think you can look at a lot of those right-handed bats from Washington going up against Jorge De La Rosa, lefty for Colorado.
Yep, absolutely. First base options. Yeah, Edwin Encarnacion's your most expensive healthy option, but he's going against Nathan Eovaldi, who is solid against righties, pretty terrible against lefties. That's certainly not to say that Encarnacion's not in play because he's coming off of a huge game, been very consistent recently. So if you're paying up, he's a fine option. But I think in tournaments, if you're trying to go lower owned, I might go with Chris Davis. He's actually hit lefties really well this year, and he's been hot, very hot recently. I mean, he's got homers in 3 of his last 4 games. He's got double-digit point games in 3 of his last 9. So $4,600, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys. But I tend to think that Encarnacion would be the much more popular play.
Yeah, first base is a little different than normal, especially for a full slate tonight, where usually you have just so many options you can't even fit them all in the podcast here. Yeah. But today it's kind of fragmented. You have a few top guys you like, but you don't love for the price point. And the mid-range is kind of just, meh. I mean, no one really sticks out at you. And then there's a few value options that you'll consider, but you don't really know. I mean, usually you want to get the high upside guys at first base. So some tournament picks I'm looking at is the first one would be Mark Teixeira going against R.A. Dickey. And, of course, he's a tournament pick because you really don't know what R.A. Dickey's going to do. If that knuckleball's working, then Teixeira's going to be looking at a 1-for-4, over 4 performance. But if it's hanging up there, Teixeira, has the power to hit 2 home runs off of Dickey as well. But, I mean, he's been pitching pretty good recently, so I really wouldn't expect that. 4.2K is quite a bit to take that gamble. So he's on my tournament radar, but I don't know if I'm going to squeeze him in for catch games, especially while pitching or paying up at pitcher. Paul Goldschmidt might be the cash game spinoff from that. A little more consistency, gets a mediocre pitcher in Iglesias tonight at home, and the salary is a little lower than we're accustomed to for him. He's usually up, mid-4, up maybe towards 5K sometimes, and now he's down at 4K. Had a great game last time out, kind of a bounce-back game that he needed, going 3 for 5 at Washington 2 days ago. So I think he's more of a comfortable cash game play if you have the cap space. Otherwise, you don't really have to go towards him. Albert Pujols, 3.5K, another guy who's a lot cheaper than we're accustomed to seeing. Gets Kevin Gausman today, who, he's been up and down this season, certainly capable of getting beat up, especially on the road against an Angels lineup that's pretty boomer bust as is. So I don't really mind taking a chance on Albert Pujols just because you're not really giving away much in terms of opportunity cost because I don't think there's any must play at first base for the respective price point.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then the cheap guy, if you got to go cheap, which you don't normally like to do at first base, but Ryan Zimmerman at 2.6K against Jorge De La Rosa. He's been hitting pretty well since his return there. And I mean, if you got to pay down, you got to make your decision somewhere. I don't think that that's a bad option. You and I were talking about it before the show. You already mentioned the Washington righties. Jorge De La Rosa, a very, very beatable pitcher, and gives up a lot of home runs too.
Yeah.
All right, second base options. My favorite of the bunch is going to be D. Gordon at $3,100. Facing off against Julio Teheran, who you mentioned as a fine option. I agree with you there, but he also struggles pretty badly with left-handed batters. So far on this season, he's allowing a 380 WOBA. Home runs don't matter here because D. Gordon's not going to hit one. But D. Gordon also...
The park.
Yeah, inside the park. He hits it into the corner. You never know because he does have that speed. But this seems like one of those nights where, D. Gordon makes for a great cash game play because all he needs to do is get on base. Shouldn't have much trouble running on the base paths. Maybe swipes a couple bags and easily pays off that salary. And I mean, he's, about the 15th most expensive second baseman today. So you got to like that. I'm trying to save a little bit of money but still get myself a solid bat. And then if I'm not playing him, you really got to like Anthony Rendon. We know how good he is against lefties throughout his career. $100 cheaper there. $3,000 for him. It seems like we just keep coming back to these Washington guys. I think we expect them to have a pretty nice night tonight.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with those two guys. I wrote up D. Gordon last night as well for the same reasons that he's going up against a guy who's pretty generous to lefties, and as we said, Teheran is one of those. And A.J. Pierzynski is horrible at throwing out stolen base attempts. So D. Gordon, it's not inconceivable for him to swipe 2 or 3 bags tonight. Certainly has that upside. And I also like Anthony Rendon for the same reason as we've been saying, these right-handed hitters against Jorge De La Rosa. Otherwise, if you need a cheap option, more of a punt play for tournaments is Scooter Gennett. He does have decent numbers against Lance Lynn. I don't know if that's going to carry over to tonight, but he's 2.3K, batting leadoff. Not a horrible spot. If you would just want to take a chance there, then load up on other guys you really like at other positions. So those are 3 options that I'm looking towards tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you on all those guys. And then I'll throw out one more guy who's been hitting pretty well. Gets Joe Kelly. We know terrible against righties. Ian Kinsler. I think if I'm paying up at second base near the top, then Kinsler's the guy I'm going with. I mean, he's finally been showing some upside recently. I mean, obviously last night he waited till the 9th inning to do it, but Joe Kelly's just terrible against righties, so I want to get myself some Tigers exposure if I can.
Yep.
Third base options, I mean, as he is pretty much every night, Josh Donaldson's probably your top overall play if you're paying up. I mean, I know it's righty-righty. He's better against lefties. Eovaldi, better against righties. But, I mean, whenever you can get Josh Donaldson, I love paying for him in tournaments. On the other side of it, that exact game, Alex Rodriguez is $1,000 cheaper. He gets R.A. Dick. You mentioned you never know what you're going to get with the knuckleballer, but if that knuckleball's not moving, definitely a guy that could get crushed. But I think I'm going to be paying a little bit down here, and my favorite cash game play is going to be Matt Carpenter. I mean, he's not only hitting the ball well, but he's hitting it hard. I mean, you look at his last 10 games, he's got 5 doubles, he's got 5 home runs. I mean, he hasn't stolen any bases, but he hasn't needed to. I mean, he's been a rock at the top of that lineup. It gets the young guy, Tyler Cravey, tonight, who we don't know a whole lot about, but he's been about average since he's come up.
Yeah, I think Matt Carpenter, if I have the cap space, I'll just click him in without much hesitation and feel really good about it for cash games. And yeah, I mean, his price is moving up, but so is his production. He has swinging a confident bat right now. Home runs in 2 out of the past 3 games. Obviously, you can't rely on that, but I mean, it's nice to see that he has that power upside at the moment. Always a multi-hit candidate, especially in a matchup like this one. And also a nice park shift in Milwaukee there. So you really don't mind those factors. Otherwise, if you're paying down a little bit, Miguel Sano, he's 3K. Price went up a little bit more. I kind of like the Twins today. Not to sound like a homer, but Cody Anderson just does not strike anyone out.
Yep.
And, I just think that the Twins are going to make a lot of solid contact. and they're a team that can just really get it going when that's the case. So I like them tonight. I think Sano's in a fine spot at 3K. Otherwise, if you're looking down a little bit cheaper, I'm going to save one for you here. Your boy. Some of the loyal listeners probably already know who that is, but I like Derek Dietrich of Miami. I know I said Teheran was a decent GPP option, but there are a few lefties in this Miami lineup that could give him fits, and Dietrich is one of them, swinging a hot bat. 6 hits in the past 3 games, including a home run last night. And he's 2.3K, almost minimum salary. Got upgraded to third. I don't know if that's going to hold, but he's either going to be third or fifth. You don't really mind that. That's not much of a difference for a guy swinging a hot bat like that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then my obligatory reference of Lonnie Chisenhall with the platoon advantage. Mike Pelfrey, not terrible against lefties, but not very good. After that nice little stretch he had earlier this season, he's really been pretty bad over the past month or so.
Much worse away from home, too.
Yes, much worse there. So the Indians lineup, not one that I have a lot of confidence in at all. Obviously, they traded away some big bats. Jason Kipnis on the DL, but Lonnie Chisenhall, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say he has 3 homer upside. He doesn't.
No,
don't believe that for a second. That was a joke.
People are going to log off right now. They're going to shut their laptop, just be like, I'm not even going to play tonight. Like, after that comment. Like,
yeah, I mean,
okay, that might be hyperbole, but
either way, we'll
that's
move
what
on.
I would do.
Yeah. Well, I'll see you later then. Let me find the quit button real quick. But shortstops today, your obvious 2 top options are the same ones that are always your top options: Troy Tulowitzki, Carlos Correa. I mean, you know the drill with these guys. More of tournament options for me tonight because you don't love the matchup for either one of them. But, I mean, certainly those are your top 2 options. It's not even close. Chances are I'll just be paying down tonight. Johnny Peralta's a fine play at $2,900. He's just consistent. Gets the young Tyler Cravey once again. And if I'm not going with him, I'm probably just going to go all the way down to the bottom and just go ahead and get Alcides Escobar leading off against John Danks. Doesn't have good numbers against him throughout his career, but I'm not completely buying into that. We all know John Danks still just not a good pitcher. And a min salary guy like Alcides Escobar, we know he can swipe bases every once in a while. Got one yesterday, but only 9 on the season. So he just makes sense as a cheap play tonight.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a punt. Another cheap guy, I think cheap is the way to go at shortstop today,
Yep.
Especially while paying up at pitcher. Another cheap guy that I like, and it really depends on where he's hitting in the lineup. He has been batting first or second in the past few games while Jason Kipnis is hurt, and that's Jose Ramirez. Against Mike Pelfrey, I don't really mind targeting anyone against Pelfrey. Jose Ramirez, he's been only 2 hits in the past 3 games, but he also has 3 runs and 6 walks. So he's a patient hitter, surprisingly so. But, I mean, I just like him tonight. I don't think there's many other guys in the same range that have, that sort of floor. So if he's in the top half of the lineup, especially first or second, I think he's an okay play at 2.5K.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call because, like I said, Pelfrey, contact pitcher, only 11% strikeout rate this year. So, I mean, he's going to make contact. He doesn't strike many people out, so I like that call. Outfield, kind of alluded to a little bit. It's Mike Trout's birthday, but go ahead. Rewind.
One more. Shortstop, Jose Reyes at 3K. I don't really mind. I think that's a lot cheaper price point than he deserves. Hasn't done a whole lot as a Rocky, but just a solid contact hitter who can steal a base. Do some other stuff, and 3K at a pretty uninspiring position. If you have the cap space, you can feel relatively confident with him.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I kind of overlooked him, but yeah, he's still there, definitely very cheap there.
You really want to get on this Mike Trout birthday thing.
It's not the birthday. What it is the price. I mean, $4,700 is insane. So
and the birthday doesn't hurt, does it?
The birthday does not hurt, but I mean, the price at $4,700 against Kevin Gausman. I know Mike Trout has had a couple subpar games recently, but we know the kind of monster upside he has, the great floor he has most nights too. I don't care if it's his birthday or if it's the pitcher's birthday. Mike Trout at $4,700 against an average pitcher, he's going to be a lock for me in cash games, so I'm getting him in there wherever I can. We were talking before the show, there's not a whole lot of other guys you really just feel like you need at the top in the outfield, and with him at that price, he's a guy I'm just going to be getting into my lineup however I can. I think another guy I like, semi-expensive, is JD Martinez at $3,800. Obviously, we mentioned Joe Kelly's terrible against righties. If I can afford JD Martinez, I'm going to find a way to get him in there tonight as well.
Yeah, I agree with you that Mike Trout is probably the guy you want to pay up for, and there's no one else really in that category. Everyone else that I'm looking at is in the mid 3K range. We have Lorenzo Cain against John Danks at 3.6K. Danks has been pretty good against this whole Kansas City lineup.
Yep.
And I don't know, this is kind of where the debate comes in, whether you pay attention to those BVP numbers or if you just kind of play the handedness splits, whereas John Danks has a 378 WOBA against righties and Lorenzo Cain much better against left-handed pitching. So it's kind of a give and take there. You can just, I don't know, you can look at it how you want. I think Lorenzo Cain is an okay play. He's not a must play just because there's a lot of people in this same range that you could consider as well. We have Brett Gardner, 3.6K, Jacoby Ellsbury, 3.5K. Deciding between the two, I might rather go with Ellsbury for $100 cheaper. But once again, you don't really know what R.A. Dickey's going to come out with a knuckleball there. And neither of them are really stealing bases either. So that's somewhat concerning. You love the price point, but you just don't love those two things going against them. So they're kind of in the same boat as Kane, where they're solid plays if you can fit them, but they're not, click and work around them type of plays. But otherwise, looking down a little further, you have Michael Brantley, 3.4. All these guys are in the same range here, same projection ranges, similar matchups, and I don't really mind Brantley. I think he's a solid play for cash games. May not have the upside that you want in tournaments, but just a reliable play at 3.4K.
All right, we lost Spencer due to some technical difficulties, and he having some disdain for my love for Lonnie Chisenhall. So I'll go ahead and wrap things up here solo. A guy I like below that point there, I like quite a bit. Aaron Hicks, $2,900 against Cody Anderson. Cody Anderson has not had success against left-handed batters. In fact, an 8.3% strikeout rate this season, so you like him. Adam Jones gets a lefty, and Andrew Heaney, 3K. He's an okay option. Odubel Herrera is another guy. Gets James Shields. Seems like a tough matchup, but Shields allowing over a 370 WOBA to lefties. Odubel's been very consistent recently. You don't love that price for cash games, but I think he's a good tournament option there at that price tag. Then going down a little bit further, you've got Justin Upton against Nola, $2,800. I think he's an okay cash game play. Hasn't shown a lot of upside recently, but like that. And then another Philly guy who's been hot, Dom Brown, homered off of Zach Greinke last night, $2,700. I think he's a fine play as well. Jason Worth at $2,300 is a fine play. Once again, go back to those Washington bats. Eddie Rosario, $2,600 for the same reasons I mentioned Hicks. I think Hicks, slightly better play, but I don't mind him. Christian Yelich at 2.6K if you're not playing Teheran. We know he hits righties pretty well, and Teheran struggles against lefties. And then a couple more cheap guys you've got here. You've got Anthony Goes at $2,400 is a guy I'll be looking at. And then your tournament option, coming off 2 homers last night, Chris Davis at $2,400 is a decent play as well. And that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.